Hello everybody, it is Lagatua. We are here today with a replay from the Fog Grandmasters Season 5 tournament. I think it goes without saying, but if you're watching this video, then there are going to be spoilers for the results of games in the tournament since we're covering a game from the tournament. So you have been warned that if you are sticking around beyond the first minute or so that there will be spoilers. You will be spoiled. So if you haven't seen the games, there's a link to it in the description of this video. Go check it out. The tournament was really exciting. There was lots of good games there. Recommend that you take a look if you have not seen it already. But if you're here, then we are going to go into some deep breakdowns of what happened in this particular game. And I think we'll kind of cut the spoiler line right about now. So we'll be entering spoiler mode and in about 5 seconds here. Okay, that's long enough for you to have bailed out. So this is myself against Raider El Caro Man. This is the first round in the round of 8, and this was a particularly scary match for me, mostly because the timers are so low. You start with 5 minutes to begin with, and each turn is only a 1 minute increment. So the game goes very, very quickly, and almost the game is almost more about how your micro and getting testing my StarCraft skills that are very, very rusty after 10 years or more. Can you make all the moves in time? Even sometimes more so than are you making the right moves? Because there's very, very little time to think about your execution, sequencing, strategy, all those things. You kind of just have to go and hope it works out for the best. And even with that, that's really challenging for me because I am definitely known as a more contemplative player. I like taking my time. And I'm definitely, this is like, the timer is my worst enemy in a match like this. But we're on an interesting map called Tokyo Dori Light. And this is a base light version of another map called Tokyo Dorifuto, I think, which has a very similar layout but has 3 bases. This is only 2 bases, but a lot of the layout is very similar, and it's kind of a nice map. I think this is a nice live game map to play, and this is a tier 1 matchup, but Von Bolt and Sturm were banned. And so that kind of leaves you with only a couple of options in tier 1. And the two that jump out to you from the very beginning are going to be Sasha and Hawk. Now, if you're playing Hawk, then you kind of want the game to get very brawly until it gets to powers, and then if you're able to get some powers off, then you're likely going to do pretty well. And you're also going to be benefiting from that day-to-day plus 10 attack bonus, because if you split the comm towers, then you're going to be able to get guaranteed clears of infantry and tanks off cities, while unless your opponent is also Hawk, then they would not be able to do that. So I think there's some merit to picking Hawk purely based on the day-to-day skill, but my opponent actually elected to choose Max in this matchup, and I think that's a really cool pick. I think especially in a format where you don't have a lot of time to kind of adjust mentally towards a curveball, I think it's really smart. And the map is, I think, a very good fit for Max. First of all, the map is terrible for artillery. It is very, very open throughout the entire map, and there's not really a lot of good places to hide artillery and get value that way. And especially these reinforcements from the base are very, very slow. You do have this lander that can kind of shuttle units, to like here or so, but if you build an artillery and send it this way, it's got to go through 2 forests in either direction to get out onto the field. And so it's pretty beneficial to have tanks rather than artillery, because you're going to be able to get out further, and then within about 2 moves, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? So this is your 2 tank move line. You're at the center of the map with 2 tank moves, but really you're 3 turns after building your artillery before you're going to be able to get an artillery shot, because you have to move it twice, and then finally it could potentially be in position to actually shoot something. So going artillery risks a lot of tempo, and it's just kind of a scary thing to go for. And if you don't really think artillery is good, then Max becomes a pretty attractive CO to go for, because he's got plus 20% on all the vehicles and a lot of powers that extend the movement. And as long as you don't need to build artillery, then that's really, really strong. You're kind of sacrificing a little bit of artillery attack, but you're getting a lot in terms of simplicity, especially in the live format where you don't have a lot of time to think about stuff. So just kind of smash units into units. Max is very, very good at that. And then also, he's just a very aggressive CO, and in a very compact map, that's something that can work very well. If you're able to kind of get control over the center, then you can really start to rule this map pretty well. So I think, even though it's technically a what do you call it, like a down pick, because Max is normally a tier 2 CO in Fog, I think it's really well suited for this map, and is not necessarily at a substantial disadvantage against a pick like Sasha. Now, I'm going with Sasha here. I think this is a pretty safe pick. There's very few COs that I would say are like a counter to Sasha necessarily. I don't think Sasha is necessarily super advantaged versus anybody, but also Sasha is not going to be disadvantaged either. And the main reason for that is your CO power, which drains the power bar of your opponent. And so Sasha is going to be able to lock down the Max's CO powers. Although it is a little bit better for Max, because Sasha's powers, they remove a percentage of the total bar. And so that percentage is based off of the maximum charge. So the more segments you have in your bar, the more effective Sasha's power is going to be. And a lot of the tier 1 COs that Sasha is often going up against, like Sturm, Von Bolt, Hawk, they're like 9 segments. They have 9 segments in their bars, and so that means that every 10% of removal that Sasha has is going to do a lot more, because it's basic. It's almost removing like a full segment of the bar for each 10%. But for Max, there's only 6 segments total, so your 10% doesn't go as far, and so it's even though the CO power for Sasha is going to be effective in delaying Max's power, it's not going to be able to delay it quite as long as it would for a CO with more segments in their charge bar. So Max, not necessarily going to be super crippled by the power drain that Sasha is going to bring. But another good reason for Sasha is the total income on this map, and I forget the total number off the top of my head. I think it might be 18K split down the middle. But when you're playing Sasha, you don't want to have too little income on the map, because Sasha gets bonus income for every city. So if there's not enough cities, then Sasha's bonus income isn't going to add up to be significant enough. But at the same time, you don't want there to be too much income on the map, because what can happen if there's too much income is there's going to be a lot more expensive units fighting on the map, and this can mean that your opponent can build up their power bar faster than Sasha can actually drain it, and then Sasha's advantage is negated that way. That kind of messes with her game plan. So really the sweet spot for Sasha is right around 20K of even income. That's really the sweet spot. And because this is a base light map, 18K is kind of on the low end of the sweet spot, but I don't think it's too low. I think it's just on the bottom edge of what is acceptable for Sasha. And the real important thing that Sasha's income provides is the ability to increase the total unit count by utilizing the airport more than you would otherwise. So Sasha with 18K on the map is going to get close to about 2K extra income per turn. Not quite. It's 1.8K, right? But on average, it's going to be roughly about 2K. And so if you just call it 20K, then that ends up being a copter, a tank, and a recon every turn. So that lets you utilize all three of your main production facilities to get units that can fight. And so as Sasha, you're really just hoping to build more vehicles than your opponent can fight into and then win through sheer numbers. So Max is going to win through brawling and having more power, and Sasha is going to win through numbers. And so that's why I went with Sasha. Additionally, we don't need to explore this idea any deeper, but Sasha does kind of counterpick a number of other weird kind of surprise picks. Like Sasha does good against Eagle because Eagle can't possibly get a superpower off. Sasha reasonable against Hawk because Hawk's powers are going to get locked down pretty hard. Let's see who else would be kind of. I mean, like I don't think you'd see like an Olaf or anything like that, but any sort of weird like global damage CO, right? Like Sasha's going to prevent that. So it just eliminates the power of a bunch of like surprise picks that that could show up. And really the only one that isn't hard countered would be Max, which is I think why Raider went with this pick. So anyway, that's kind of some thoughts on the CO matchup. Now let's look at this map and kind of break it down, because there's some important things to understand about this map. And this is the map that I prepared most heavily for, because this was the first round map. So I did a lot of thinking. And also this is the map where your preparation goes the furthest, because you're under the most time pressure. So if you have a clear idea of what you want to do, it's gonna pay off later on once you're in the thick of battle and you don't have time to think about things. And this is actually something I learned in my qualifier match, where I had a really good opening and the early battles went well, but I didn't really have a good strategic understanding of the map. And so once we got into the mid game, I kind of made some bad strategic decisions because I hadn't really thought about things in enough depth. And so when I was preparing for this match, I was pretty determined not to make the same mistake and to really understand, like, what do I want to accomplish, and have something in my mind already so that I can just kind of do it once we're in the game. We'll see how that goes later on. But for now, let's look at this map. So the most important things are these two comm towers, and these comm towers have some missile silos next to them. And so these are kind of like the tiles that help you contest the comm tower. So the idea is for these comm towers to be very contested. And so this is supposed to belong to player 1, and then this is supposed to help player 2 more easily contest player 1 capturing it, because you can basically attack whatever's here from this high defense tile to make it more difficult, and vice versa on this side. And so one of the things I was most worried about as Sasha was getting into a situation where I have no comm towers. Sasha is not getting any sort of day-to-day firepower boost, but I was expecting to probably play against Hawk. And one of the things I was very concerned about is, what if Hawk goes for like an early harassment strategy and really just tries to lock down my comm tower, and then I end up fighting a 1 comm tower Hawk against a 0 comm tower Sasha. I'm fighting plus 20 against 0% in terms of the attack buff. And then that becomes a very, very difficult game to win. So I wanted to make sure that I got a comm tower so that I could avoid just losing. And that is something that you have to be very careful of in your opener. Focus on critical properties and not let yourself get into a situation where your opponent can easily deny you a property that is so critical that your whole game plan falls apart without it. So that's something to keep in mind. Additionally, these two properties in the center are also very contestable, and some of the pathing here is very important to look at. So I'm actually gonna turn on the lights for a second here. Now I'll switch to my opponent's vision, just so I'm getting a little bit ahead of ourselves here, but I just want to illustrate something. So the recon movement from this base here. The first move is to this forest, which is really terrible. And it seems like maybe recon harass is not that good. But once you get it here, then the recon actually can move quite a long way. And you can actually get all the way to this missile silo tile here. And if you have vision of this city, then that means that actually this day 3 recon can contest a capture of this city as early as day 5, but more realistically day 6, because you're not going to have vision on day 5. And so you can see that this recon, if we kind of hold this range here, you can see that it can get to actually adjacent to both of these center cities in 2 moves. So that really means that so the recon can get here. That means that both of these cities are incredibly contested, and if you don't get them early, it's going to be pretty hard to get them later, unless you've developed some sort of advantage where your opponent can't really fight into your army. So the first build that I actually did when I was preparing for this used a T-copter to get an infantry onto this city to start capping it on my day 5. But what I realized is that if my opponent goes day 3 recon, then it's going to be kind of a disaster, because they're going to be able to interrupt this cap, and there's absolutely nothing that I can do about it. And it's very likely that in any day 3 recon play is gonna really own that opener. And I just felt like that was too much risk. Especially, I'm kind of known, I think, for being sometimes a little bit greedy with my openers. Maybe that's a little bit of an understatement. But I felt like the possibility of running into a day 3 recon was pretty high. And I'm game planning mentally against Hawk here. I'm not even game planning against Max. When I saw the Max pick, I did have about like 15 to 20 minutes before we started to maybe to adjust my plans, which I didn't change anything. But after I knew that it was a Max, I felt even better about not going for an early capture game in the center, because I felt like it was really likely that there was going to be an early recon and potentially even a day 3 recon. I thought was very, very realistic given how fast that this recon can get on the map. So anyway, back in Hawkland. So here, if we go to the next turn, so now if we're playing against an early recon, it's definitely going to take this pathing. This is just the natural pathing that you take. And so once you end up here, the natural thing for a recon to do is to end up going over here. This is a very squishy area for your opponent, because your opponent, or well, me in this case, I can't easily get vehicles down in this direction, because this base, to build vehicles, it has to go through the lander. So it's got to be built, it's got to get shuttled to here, and then it's got to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? So tanks are going to take at least a little bit to get here, and especially when you start looking at these properties, the tank is going to need to get dropped and then move twice in order to get down into this corner. So this area is very vulnerable for recon harass, and any recon harass that starts here is likely going to end up down there at some point, just because that's where you go. So now if we kind of turn the lights back off. I'll turn on my my vision again. So when I'm designing my build, I do like the idea of a T-copter build, because if we go ahead here and kind of go to the future, on day 3 for me, I start off with 7,000 funds, and that's a benefit of Sasha's higher income. So that's a perfect financial incentive, I suppose, to go T-copter and 2 infantry, because that uses all my income, and it gets a T-copter out earlier than it would for any other CO. So I do like that idea, but the problem is, where do I actually send the T-copter? And so what I ended up going with is, okay, let's not send the T-copter to the center, because any harass is gonna bop that. Actually, what let's do is let's send the T-copter over here, because if you have the T-copter on this tile and then it's shuttling infantry this way, it gets around this annoying little C tile, so it ends up being pretty efficient. But also, we can get to this comm tower very, very quickly. And then we can also get this city, which if we don't get this city early, then oftentimes Max is gonna, any CO is gonna be able to get infantry shuttled across here, and then maybe, you know, boosted by the black boat, take this city, and then go here. So if you don't get there quickly, it's kind of hard to lock this down. You can't reinforce this city very easily from both bases. You can kind of reinforce it from this base, but you can't really reinforce it from this base. So exerting control over this area once you get to the mid game is very difficult. And it's something that you can deny more easily, because you've got this mountain to help you deny it with infantry. But it's really hard to control, because like it's very hard to control this corner enough to have this property be safe. So my plan is, I'm gonna be really greedy towards this way, because the harass most likely is gonna go this way. And maybe I'll get kind of harassed here a little bit, but I can live with that, because at least I'm not trying to go for an early center. And this way, I can go for a very early comm tower cap before any infantry are in position to contest it. And then we can just kind of play from there, knowing that we're not just going to lose because we get our comm tower denied. So that's really kind of the core thinking of this T-copter. So anyway, we're talking about the map layout a little bit. So this center, very, very contested. These cities are very hard to take because they're very, very vulnerable to both recon and tank harass from the other player. So I'm going to avoid that. Really, a lot of these properties kind of in this area are all pretty contested, especially the comm tower. So I think like these are the most contested for sure. And then what often ends up happening is one player is going to just win one corner, and the other player is going to win the other corner and just get all 3 of these. These are kind of like a package deal. It's kind of weird for like one player to get 2 of these and the other player to get 1. It just, in practice, one person ends up stronger and then gets to those corner properties, and the other person doesn't. So my thinking is I grab these 2 early, and then I can just play defense on this side and just make sure I don't lose these. And then I'm going to commit everything down here to win this corner. And that's a pretty good way to at least establish an advantage. That if I do it right, and like I can deny this city, for example, then there's a good chance that I can maybe eke out an income lead. And also, if I am able to like win a fight in this area, then I also have the potential to go up 2 comm towers, or even like just go up 1. So I have this one and just to deny this one and play in an advantage that way. So there's a lot of possibilities there that I can set up, and it allows me to fight together with my army, because I'm just not going to commit vehicles to this corner. I'm using speed to get those properties. I'm not using vehicles to get those properties, and so it's unlikely that I'm going to get overwhelmed by enemy units if I'm keeping all of my vehicles together. So, and I can do all this thinking before the game. And once I have this plan in mind, then it's more just about executing it. I don't need to try to improvise my plan too much because I already have a very clear idea of what I want to do and how I want to accomplish it, at least at a high level. In theory. Now, what happens in practice is as we get into the game, I think we can kind of start following along with the actual game now. We're on day 4 here as we skip through. We get to day 5, and what I realized as we get to my day 5 is I don't know how this happened. I think the move planner just lets you go into debt. And so I was going into debt this turn without realizing it. And I was building a T-copter this turn because I was like, oh, 9,000 gold. I can build a T-copter. It turns out you don't actually have enough money for a for a battlecopter. I was going to build a battlecopter this turn, and there's not actually any money for infantry when you do that. And I don't know. Well, it's really good that I caught it before I built the battlecopter because that would have been real bad. But at the end of this turn, you can see I'm at 843. And by the end of the turn, I'm at 720. So, like, it took me a minute and 20 to work this turn that should have been completely pre-planned. So this is where things start to go wrong because I realized that my preparation was miscalculated, and I couldn't do the thing that I planned, which is to build the battlecopter this turn. So I kind of get through this turn here as I get the nice little boosty to get to these 2 cities very quickly. And now this T-copter can just go to this tile here and do happy boosties from infantry from here going forward. So it's set up to do that. So that part's great. We get to the end here, and then it's like, oh, what do I build? Because now I can't build a B-copter, so I got to build something else. And I had other plans of what to do down the road. I had like the lander movement all planned out through like day 7 or 8. And that's all out the window now. So basically what I could do is I could do a tank from here. That kind of lines up with my income because I've got 9K. But the problem is if I go tank, then it messes up my original plan, which was to have an early copter. And my original plan for the early copter was to send it over this way, because this corner of the map is very, very, very good for copters. The opponent's airport is all the way back here. So if you want to commit, normally you commit copters kind of towards the center of the map. But if you're committing copters towards the center and then enemy copters show up here, then it's like really inefficient because they had to go like towards the center and then they got to like dive over. So I was really counting on having like a few turns to maybe supplement my income push or my infantry push here. And like, okay, well, like we'll send the copter over here. We'll cap these 2 cities. And then we've got this copter that can go along with these infantry and maybe like kill an infantry here and try to win this corner with the copter and then shift the copter back this way to try and win the other corner. Yeah, but if you don't have enough funds to build the copter, then that plan is not really viable anymore. But it's kind of a moot point because we're not building a copter this turn. So instead, what I want to do is I want to at least, as I'm frantically thinking in my 1 minute here, my plan is just like, okay, I just need to leave enough money next turn to buy the battlecopter next turn, and the copter will be a turn delayed, but at least I can kind of continue with the same high-level strategy and stay within my plan as much as possible, even though I kind of messed it up pretty bad. So we go with a Recon, even though we could have bought a tank, because I looked at the income and I was like, okay, if I get it Recon and infantry, then next turn I'm going to have 12,800, and that's enough for battlecopter infantry, and we'll try to get this back on track. But that was a really big mistake on my part. Well, I would say it's both impressive and depressive. It's impressive because I think my decision that I made under like a lot of stress and pressure and like, oh crap, was very good in terms of it didn't throw off my overall strategy because I found a way to kind of adapt into what I wanted to do anyway. But it's bad because I lost, a minute 20, maybe a minute. Let's call it a minute, right? I lost a minute thinking about something that I should have just had totally locked down before the match even started. And when you're playing 1 minute increment, having an extra minute is potentially very, very important. And yeah, you'll see. So that's what happened this turn. My plan's already a little bit messed up even before I've made contact with my opponent. But let's get into turn 6. So we don't see anything, but I am aware that if my opponent does go day 3 recon, and we kind of spoilered it a little bit earlier on, but it's when you're playing against Max, like you have to expect things like that. So it's not like, oh my gosh, I never saw the possibility of a day 3 recon coming. So day 3 recon is here, then day 4 is here, day 5 is here, and day 6 could potentially be here or here, right? So I think there's at least a possibility that I could get trapped. It's not unthinkable, and I just need to be aware of that. We're gonna take this infantry down here instead of going here. And the reason for that is because we don't need to chain into the comm tower here, because this is our comm tower. So we want to chain into more income. And the income chain is here. Okay, so that's why we choose this direction. So the infantry movement is kind of nice here because I did some property skipping, but this infantry is responsible for its own chain, and then this guy has the option to either go this way or potentially just kind of back cap this. But the plan is to try and at least go forward a little bit and see what we can find, because there's unlikely to be vehicles over here. Because again, we're playing against Max. Max is likely to be aggressive, and the aggression is likely to head in this direction, which means there's not likely to be any defense over there. So we can actually... You don't generally want to be aggressive against Max, but there are opportunities. And it can be nice, actually, if you can find openings to force Max to split up, because that weakens the overall power of Max's push. So we at least get the recon to see here. So we know that there's no recon blocking this. And then we send this guy here because we want to set up more income. And then this guy has a bunch of options. And so the default would be to go to here. But next turn, like if we see a recon sitting on the city, then we just send him here. So this is a nice little infantry setup. It's reasonably resilient against a lot of harass. Not invulnerable to harass, but resilient. If infantry get interrupted, there's other places for like the backup infantry to go that don't involve getting massacred. And so now we're back on our initial idea of having a battle copter, and now we can kind of proceed with the with things as we wanted. And it does actually work kind of nice because now we got to build an infantry on the turn that our T-copter is in position to send it anywhere, right? So that's a nice little accidental efficiency that worked out pretty nice. So all's well that ends well. And so we get our infantry pop down here, and this is actually very unlucky for radar, because the roll on this recon to kill this infantry, or sorry, to get it down to 4 is like 80%. So it's 80% likely to get it down to 4, but he does not get that roll. It stays at 5, and so what that means is that if I cap again next turn and bring it down to 5, then Raider has to attack it again, otherwise it will actually get this property. So that is very unlucky, and it's actually quite impactful. It forces Radar to commit another unit or another attack on this recon to kill it, and Raider can't see anything. if I have a day 5 tank build, then I'm going to have a tank here, which is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to potentially hit the recon here. Now, obviously, the recon can come around here to potentially get around that, but the longer that you stay around, the more likely it is that you're going to get your recon popped. So that's just some really bad luck for my opponent. There's no way around it. Other than that, I don't really see anything else meaningful. But this does tell us that it is a day 3 recon. So we're either going to see another recon next turn show up, because it could be like a day 3, day 4 recon, or there could be kind of like greed behind it. Like, I'm a little bit concerned that my opponent could be going for the middle. That's a very powerful thing to do when you're doing a very early aggro build, is to just go like one really early vehicle and then do something really greedy behind it. Because what's going to happen is your opponent's going to see this early recon and they're going to be like, oh crap, I got to deal with this recon that's coming around and blocking down this corner for me. And then you build like, tanks, and you send all your vehicles down here. But all the while, the aggressive player is like, "Ooh, I'm just going to run a bunch of infantry to all the contested properties and get them for free while my opponent's distracted." So that's something that you can see. So at least I do have an early recon. So as I send this recon down to kind of see what's going on, I can at least hedge and know if we need to do any sort of counter, counter greed with our own recon. And that's the primary reason why I send this T-copter here. This T-copter gives me vision of both of these cities. And because I have vision of both of these cities, if he's trying to sneak the cap here, I can send this recon over here to interrupt. So that's why that T-copter has to go there. So that I can, because I'm worried about the greed play. So this is my hedge against that. So I'm covering that. Now I see nothing, so that's fine. So that means that I'm free now to send my recon down to kind of help with my defense and see what's going on. And actually now I've got an infantry that can put some pressure on the center as well. Because if he's going to harass down here, then it's possible, if there's no follow-up, that there's not going to be anything in the middle, and I can kind of be sneaky and force out some units. Additionally, I've got this copter that's going to be in the center too. So fighting in the center is not that bad, because I do have, some vehicles that are going to be able to contest. Air units are very, very strong on this map, and one of the big reasons for that is this base has to go through 2 forests to get to the center of the map, and battlecopters don't care. They just fly to the center. So copters have a tremendous amount of mobility and can get very far on the map. Like, look how far this covers. This covers, almost 2 squares beyond the center side of the map just after one move. So copters are very, very strong, and there's a lot of value. And in addition to what I said earlier about kind of getting to this corner, they're very good in the middle as well. So that's why I wanted to get that early copter. They're quite good. And if we see any tank follow up for this recon, then this copter is going to be quite nice. So we get a tank here, and this is kind of the challenge, right? So the tank, it can get here, but it's gotta wait. So this, even though I'm building the tank now, it's going to be a while before it actually kind of comes online. And if we are facing a bunch of recons, it might be pretty challenging to try and ward them away, because copters are not amazing against recons. They're good enough, but they're also very vulnerable. And Sasha recons against max recons it's not wonderful either. Now we move this guy forward just to kind of see what's going on. I wanted to see if this was capped yet or not. If it wasn't capped, then this would likely be capped, and so we could actually try to contest this city. But that's not really going to happen. But at the same time, this infantry kind of unlikely to be attacked. And if my opponent doesn't have any vision, which is pretty likely because this is an early vehicle, unlikely to have vehicles up here, then it's a little bit scary because my opponent doesn't see anything that I've got. The Recon here sees infantry and nothing else. So where's all of Sasha's stuff? Well, we know it's here, but maybe our opponent is going to see that infantry posture aggressively and think, maybe I'm pushing over this way, which I'm not. But I could be. So now this guy gets popped, and this guy also has a good roll. So did you lose like the 80% twice? That's really unlucky. That's remarkable, actually. And so what happens is this infantry comes over here and ends up finishing off the capping infantry here. And we don't know this at the time, but that infantry was actually capping this comm tower, and he got pulled off to interrupt my capping infantry. And the entire reason why he had to get pulled off is because Max lost this roll, this 80% roll. If this guy is at 4, there's no need to pull him off the comm tower. You can just leave him be because he's not going to finish the capture next turn. But because he lost the roll, and then I'm like, okay, well, I'm just going to keep capping it. Now he feels the need. He's got to do something about it, and so he pulls that infantry off to kill it. So we see this infantry retreat, and so we can be pretty confident that this infantry went to go capture this city, because that's what you would do, right? That's what I was planning on doing, so it's probably what my opponent's doing. And then this copter comes in and kills this. So this is, unfortunately, this is a misplay by my opponent. And this is what happens when you play on very low increment. You get sometimes very impactful tactical misplays. What should have happened is, okay, so here at the beginning of this turn, my opponent has 3 units that can attack. We got the Recon, we got the infantry on the comm tower, and then we've got a copter that's probably like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I don't know where exactly it is, but it's like it's like here, on this line. So Recon goes here. That's fine. Makes perfect sense. The copter needs to go kill this infantry. And ideally, the copter needs to go kill this infantry from like this tile. Now let's turn on the lights for a second and see if that's actually possible, because I don't know where he positioned his copter. All right, so the copter's here. Yeah, so the copter can absolutely go to here. And so that's what needs to happen, because like I mentioned, this corner is super great for copters from player 1. Just like this side is great for copters from player 2. Because the copter is going to be very, very safe attacking infantry here. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's going to be 3 moves away from my airport, following the most common pathing. And actually, I think even the other pathing is probably still also 3 moves away. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, so if it goes here, like there's no way that copter gets hit. It's totally safe. It picks off this guy for free, and that's the end. And then, okay, if you want to pull off that infantry to kill this guy, then that's fine. You can do that too. But the infantry needs to go here. He doesn't need to go here, because now the copter, now this opener basically dies to the same opener that I did, just a little bit slower. And mine is slower because I got the T-copter, but we both went Recon into Battlecopter. So this is now all of a sudden the absolute worst world that Max can ever find himself in, because this is like a really large income commitment, and it's not a hard counter, because a hard counter would be like an anti-air, but this, I mean, it's super bad to end up getting your copter first struck. And also, I do have the comm tower too. So this ends up being like, it's a little bit risky, and it's really bad luck that he lost both of those rolls that were strongly in his favor. But at the same time, this was a tactical misplay as well. So you can say good luck, bad luck, but sometimes that's just how it goes. So now we're in a really, really strong position, and now I'm confident, like, okay, great. Like, we're going to have a strong early advantage. Now we can go for greedy caps because we're going to have the copter, and I know that there's no way that he can fight into a copter advantage going forward, because this is just too much income lost for Max. And as soon as Sasha gets ahead on kind of like map presence, it's very, very hard for Max to get back into it without Sasha screwing up, because Sasha has more money to buy vehicles. So if Sasha is ever ahead at any point in the number of vehicles or the power of the vehicles that she has, she is very likely to stay there because she's going to grow faster than Max can. So we've already set up that situation. So this is like horrible for Max. Now I don't end up finishing off. This is kind of, you could argue that this is a little bit of a misplay. I think, let's see, hold on. I think in retrospect, it might have been better to like send the copter here on the city and then maybe hit the Recon here and hit it into the copter as well. I don't know if that would necessarily have killed the copter, but it would have brought it close. Recons actually do a decent amount of damage to copters. It probably would have taken the copter down to 1 or something. And then the important thing is the Recon needs to provide vision of this infantry, because I want to counterattack this infantry from the city with this guy. But I'm under like a lot of time pressure, and so just mentally I didn't have enough time to like properly think everything through. I just got to go and make sure I at least make some pretty sane moves so that I can preserve my timer, because you can see I'm already kind of in the hole in terms of timer. So I just send him in like whatever, and I just make sure the important things get done correctly. I hit the copter, I hit the infantry. Well, that's the most important thing. And now my Recon at least is pretty safe. There's no tank. I don't think there's enough money for a tank to show up, but I'm not even able to think in that level of depth in this moment. I'm just like, go. Protect the rest of these caps. And now we need to get more infantry down here, because we lost 2 infantry on this front, so that's not great. But winning the vehicle fight is it's a fair compensation for taking 2 infantry deaths. And we do a little bit of cute positioning with this lander. This is something that I had planned from the beginning. A Recon can actually get to this square 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and load into the lander here and get shuttled all the way down here. So this is like a positioning that I want to use to like really up the tempo to make sure that I win this corner, because I'm going to build a Recon from this base, and then it's going to end up down here next turn, which is a really strong move. And once he's in this forest, Recons, this terrain now is all of a sudden really good for Recon movement. So that's like a really good tempo boost for me. So that's why this lander is here instead of here. And it ends up forcing the tank to be back 2 squares. But I don't think him being here would actually change all that much, considering this stuff is likely to retreat anyway. And then we get more copters. Like, this is what we want to do as Sasha. We want to get as many units out total as possible. So it's, we haven't built any tanks, and that's fine. Another thing that's nice, so the mountain can see this infantry, so we can actually delay this. And we know that everything is down here, so any infantry harass that we can do up here is not going to get contested. And we have that really nice silo tile. We also see that this comm tower is uncapped, so like already this is the dream start for us. Other than the mishap with my opener and not calculating correctly, everything else has gone amazingly well. I couldn't have possibly asked for more luck and just the way it played out. Unfortunately, the infantry is going to get popped. Now, this guy, he did kill an infantry, but now he's weak enough that he can't cap stuff anymore. And there's no way I'm going to let him get the comm tower now. Now that I'm strong enough to be the bully on this side of the map, and the way the terrain is set up to kind of incentivize you to harass capture this comm tower, like there's no way I'm gonna let that slide. I'm just set up too strong to let that go. And he does see my center cap here, but he doesn't have anything else other than this copter to interrupt it. So I mean, it delays it a turn, but still, there's going to have to be something else that comes in to further delay that, because it's not enough. So we definitely are not going to give him this comm tower. And actually, we don't even need to finish it off with the infantry. It is actually better for us to just work on income. This guy down to 4. It's kind of a lucky roll, I suppose, but I do have the comm tower, so I guess it's not super crazy, but regardless, like this cap is not going to go through. So we don't actually need to sacrifice any economy to get it. We can just focus on capping our stuff. And this recon and this copter coming in, Max just can't control this area. Max will not have enough stuff to do it. So we can be the bully. And we're sending like all of our vehicles down to this corner. We're just making sure that we win this fight down here. And slowing down the caps as much as possible here. Killing this infantry is really nice because it's going to be really slow for another infantry to show up and get this corner property. And this was just a 1-for-1 trade. Like, you know, it's the infantry here and just straight up kill that infantry and then also deny the property. So like really low investment from my side. No economic damage done to myself because I had already captured this city, and he did not deny the property. So this guy is earning his Medal of Honor. And then we just want to be really aggressive with infantry. We're up a comm tower. Generally speaking, any infantry trades are probably good for us because they're going to exacerbate the economic advantage for me. And I want to buy enough time to kind of get more infantry down into this corner because this corner belongs to me now. And we do have the T-copter. Yeah, so this is nice. We just interrupt all caps, and we've got better infantry reinforce because of the T-copter as well. And now we've got the tanks. So yeah, we've got a lot of power in this area. This area belongs to ours, and we can also pivot very easily to the center because it's a small map. And again, another copter, another recon, as many units as possible. That's Sasha's game plan. We want a lot of units so that we can have a lot of infantry. That's going to let us trade infantry pretty effectively. Now I kind of get wiped out pretty bad up here. A lot of these infantry die. Yeah, another tank shows up, so that hurts. So this side is not looking that great, but 2 tanks showing up means that this copter is not going to have anything to counter it. And also, because there was a lot of infantry fighting here, we stopped the cap here and we stopped the cap here, and they didn't get recapped this turn. So we further delayed those 2 properties, even though we did lose some infantry. So it's not great, but it's also not horrible. This is an interesting turn. There's a few things that I could do. So I could try to go like this way and fight with the copter into the tanks. And this is one of the turns where I think the low timer, you can see I'm already down to 522, really starts to play a factor. Because there's a lot of options for me here. I could try to fight into here, but it doesn't feel great because I'm kind of overextending. And I've got a lot of stuff down here. So if I attack over here, I'm going to be outranging these guys, and they're not going to get to attack with me. So I don't really love that. Additionally, I don't have a lot of incentive to attack here because these cities are not capping. So I'm not under any pressure to get over here immediately. Instead, what I think is likely is we just saw a lot of reinforcements over here. We saw 2 tanks show up. And so that means very likely that there's nothing supporting this recon. And I would love to just remove that recon for free. And then that will finally allow me to totally lock down this corner, which is my entire objective as well, the whole time. So we send the tank down. and then the Recon. And it feels dangerous because like this positioning is very, very, very overextended for sure. But because we saw the tanks here, I think it's really unlikely for there to be anything to counter this. And even if there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you can't move here because this freaking forest is in the way with a tank. So then the counter is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this tank is actually safe from any tanks from this base as long as there's no max power. So the worst thing that could happen is we trade Recon for Recon. So no, I don't think I thought it out in that depth at the time because I'm trying to play really fast. But it is, I think, a pretty sound, and I think it is a sound decision. I don't think my opponent expected me to do this. So I think that part's good. And now everything else can kind of go center because now we've got this side. And we can just kind of pick off this infantry. I don't know if that was worth or not. I don't know. I felt like there's tanks here, so I felt pretty good that maybe there's no anti-air in this area, and also it does deny vision, so there's nothing to see this copter. So even if there is an anti-air that shows up, well, first of all, if there's anti-air that shows up, this tank can counterattack. So it's going to turn into a trade, which is not the end of the world. But something's got to move into range to see this copter too if it's going to get picked off. So I don't know. That was kind of impulsive, I guess. But so we get this copter, pick off some more infantry. We're just trying to reduce the infantry numbers as much as possible. And then we're at the end of the turn. We just got enough money for CO power. Oh, I love this move. Yeah, just put the... So it's pretty obvious that my opponent, knows they can't attack in this corner anymore. I'm too strong there. So the next move is, okay, fine. You get that corner, but I'm going to take this comm tower because I can't get this comm tower anymore. Max lost all his infantry, so can't get that. So now backup plan is we're just going to take this one. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to put my T-copter on there so you can't even start a cap next turn. Or if you do, then you're going to put a bunch of tanks here and, surprise 2 copters. So that's the idea there. And then I move this guy back because he did his job. And I really should be pressing the CO power button, but I forget because I'm trying to finish my turn very quickly because that turn took 2 minutes. So it's like I'm trying to play really, really fast, and I have CO power, and I absolutely should have pressed it that turn. That was the turn for Sasha to press CO power, because Max getting the CO power could potentially lead to this tank getting popped by a max force or whatever is that is normal power. I don't know. I don't know what the max powers are called, but anyway. I guess he doesn't have vision of this tank though, so that is working in my favor. That's kind of the benefit of clearing out all the units in a corner. You have to get something in range to let you see everything. Anyway, so this guy gets popped. Not too surprising. He did his job. You could argue maybe I should have put him in this forest instead, but whatever. I'm trying to play fast. This guy retreats, so that further indicates that everything is getting reinforced this way. So it's pretty obvious what to do, right? Like, this is clear. We just capture everything, and then we front shift up here so we don't lose our properties. So strategically, it's very straightforward what to do. And we don't see anything. So I got really let off the hook because Max didn't even bother attacking. So the fact that I didn't CO power ends up not even mattering, even though that was just a clear mistake on my part. So again, getting the center property, very, very difficult because Recon's 2 turns to this tile. This is why. So this is a freebie. And then we kind of counter cap it, mostly just to protect the Recons. In retrospect, I wish that I would have just I wish that I would have just cleared it with this infantry here and then let this guy stay back. But again, we're just trying to play fast. seeing this guy retreat means that I feel confident that I can just body block for this comm tower. And even if I take a hit here, it's worth it if I can get the comm tower. But we're expecting all the stuff to be up here anyway. So I'm not expecting too much to show up here. And now we're just trying to play quickly and centralize. And now I do make sure that I actually pop the CO power. Kind of unlucky, my income 19,900. So if I had 100 more gold, I would have drained the other 3,000 from his meter. But I mean, what can you do, right? And yeah, so now we've got enough tanks now. We got 1, 2, 3. So I just want to mix in an anti-air. But copter every turn, because that's where we're playing Sasha. That's what we're doing here. So this infantry is going to get absolutely massacred. The Sasha CO power actually is kind of saving this Recon, because I think under normal circumstances, especially if Max had 1 tower, I think this Recon is a one-shot from the tank. But Recon's giving us great vision. Seeing the tank get reinforced here, seeing the anti-air. It's just really good information. And then we've accomplished this corner now. And now that we have the comm tower, now it's really, really good. Now we don't even need to be here anymore, because nothing's going to show up in time to contest these captures. We just continue to move those along as the game continues. All we need to do is do like some even trades up here. And as long as I don't like get completely wiped out by a max power or something like that, then the income and the comm tower lead is just going to be way too much. Move this T-copter here just to make sure that nothing was on the mountain, even though it seemed really unlikely. And anything that goes into this this copter is likely to be good for me. A copter that comes in to attack it is going to get counterattacked by a bazillion copters. And I've got a bunch of tanks on the way in case an anti-air shows up as well. And we see the anti-air as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we know it can't reach. So there would have to be another anti-air out there somewhere. And now this is Max's problem, right? We don't need to like go kill Max. That's not what we need to do. Max has to find a way to take some of these cities. And we are not responsible for solving that problem for Max. So we're just going to play back. We kind of kill the infantry. I don't know about that. That maybe was a bit much. But I guess my thinking is like, okay, if I kill this infantry, like there's no way that anything makes it to this corner forever. But maybe this is, I think, probably just could have let it go. I've got enough infantry here that I can, I could have dealt with that infantry had there been an attack there. Anyway, looking at the rest of this turn, we really don't need to do anything aggressive here. One thing to note is my time is starting to get pretty low. I don't want to initiate a big fight with low timer, so we're going to make Max think about how he wants to attack into me, and I'm not going to solve that problem, and that will allow me to hopefully get a little bit more time. Because now with the income lead, the longer this thing goes, I should be able to continue to build more stuff and win the fights just through sheer numbers. And that is my time management strategy. But so yeah, my overextension down there gets punished pretty hard. And now my copters are up here too. So I can't really fight very easily down there. So yeah, so we don't really see anything. You got to imagine that there's probably been kind of like a front shift and everything's kind of over here. We don't really have too much to accomplish because we seem to have defended this area pretty well. I don't think we're going to be taking any more. Like I think this comm tower is pretty well defended now. I've got 2 infantry here, so we really just need to find a way to deny this city with the least amount of commitment and front shift back down over here. So we can send the copter in. That's a low HP copter anyway, just to get some damage on and see what's going on. And the anti-air brings it down to 1. Oh, and I think the main reason I did this is because it allows the anti-air to get into the forest which is really nice. So Max is really infantry starved, and when you're infantry starved, having stuff in force is really nice because sometimes you'll have to waste a unit just getting in range to see it. And if you're wasting a unit as Max, that unit's probably going to be like a tank or some kind of attacking unit. So efficiency-wise, it's quite good. But I don't really want to commit too much else because I have a lot of stuff that's out of position that really needs to rotate over to get ready for the fight. So yeah, I guess I was seeing if that corner was still available. Answer is no. So I'm just going to pick off that infantry with the Recon to see, again, if we see nothing up here, then we can be very sure that everything's down here. But a lot of this is just like, honestly, like the tactical thinking is just like kind of move stuff, attack stuff. Because I've got 2 minutes, 40 seconds, and we're not even into the big fight yet that we know is going to happen. So I don't have a lot of time to really be precise here. I just have to shift down with the rest of my units so that I'm ready to take a fight, which is what I'm doing here. And then I delay the cap with the Recon. Obviously, this Recon's going to get destroyed immediately, but at least it gives me another turn. And then maybe I can do something with either this infantry to delay further or send a vehicle in there. But we're getting pretty close to CO powers again, and I don't think I'm going to get enough charge. So I don't really want to commit anything more to make it easy for Max to get that last little bit. But again, so now we're at our little happy place in terms of income. We're almost at 20K. So now this is copter tank recon time. We're just going to be spamming copter tank recon as much as we can for the rest of the match because we have enough income to do that, and it's very simple and it's very good for brawling. And really, the resource we don't have, the resource we have the least of is time. And now I'm down to like 37 seconds now. It took like 2 minutes to move all that. So I mean, it's really, really difficult to do anything but just send stuff in and go. Because there's just no time to plan anything out at all. The good news is that as long as I can just keep the car rolling down the road without any disasters, like the day limit is 25 days. And I do have well more properties. I like 3 more properties than my opponent. I think technically the capture limit is 1 more after this turn. So we take the free recon, just 1 unit for 1 unit. That's a good unit count trade for me. And also cuts off vision for later on, which is advantageous for me. Yeah, so this is actually a pretty good fight. This was actually well put together considering the amount of time I had. Like we got all the vision, and like we're right along the center line. Like we're gonna take a hit, but we've also got a CO power that we can use, and we've got 20K, so we're gonna get 40% of that bar removed, and we don't really have much time to do anything else. We just have to move copters and go. I was really hoping that would kill because I wanted to start capping here, but it didn't. But like, there's no time to think about anything. I'm just like, better not forget the power this time. So I did it really early. And again, yeah, copter tank recon, jam that end turn button. We got 2 seconds left. So it's just like, okay, we're starting to get to the point where it's like, kill infantry and hold on to your butt. We're still, I think we'd be like 3 or 4 turns away from where you can just only care about killing infantry to preserve your property lead. But when you get increment, like 1 minute increment with 26 units, you're talking about moving 1 unit every 2 seconds. That's really difficult. Anyway, so now we're this is probably max power turn. The tanks are all going to come in here. That's just to get charge. That's just to get charge for power. So now here's the power. This is a pretty nice engagement. We see the medium tank. So that's like good to know. It's always good to see your opponent's tech unit before it actually has a chance to do any damage. and then everything else backs off. So, I mean, all in all, that wasn't the end of the world, but it's not like I have a whole lot of time to ponder everything. So the main thing I'm thinking about this turn is I was kind of waiting for the turn to end, planning things out in my mind. So there's like a few things that have to happen immediately. So first of all, this anti-air and like one of these copters has to go kill this copter immediately, and then this anti-air has to die. Like those are the two things that I can't screw up. Everything else I can screw up and it's not the end of the world, but I got to get those right. So I just like try to do those two things first so that I don't run out of time. And then everything else is just like yeet stuff into stuff. I don't even have time to think about it. Yeet stuff into stuff. That's really horrible. Like that's the second bad roll I had on that 1 HP infantry. Because I wanted to cap this city again and couldn't. I mean, I guess I get the other infantry instead, so it's okay. But yeah, and then I run out of time. So setting all that up, that was the full minute. So I at least I got to deploy another copter. So that was good. So even though I missed out on some vehicles here, I did get to deploy another copter. And the copters are really like the driving force of my army. I've been spamming them out almost every single turn. And it's kind of hard to win against copter spam when you're already down on income, because you have to kill all the tanks, but then you also have to have enough anti-air to deal with the copters. So it's mathematically, it's a very difficult situation. But I'm not really thinking about all that strategy. I'm just like attack stuff into stuff. Oh, and I forgot to power too, by the way. Although I guess, no, actually I didn't forget to power. I had enough power, but this charge is done, so I take it back. I can't even remember what I've forgotten. That's how crazy things are going for me at this point. So more fighting happens. That medium tank is popping in. This turn felt pretty bad. Like it was a little rough, but the good thing is that I have enough infantry saved up that this threat to my comm tower is like, it's not a real threat. Okay, so back on my turn. This anti-air has to die. I'd love to be able to get this copter if I can, but if I can't, it's okay. But as long as I keep killing anti-airs, I'm just going to have so many copters that everything else should kind of like not matter. I was hoping that would actually kill my tank, but it didn't, because I wanted to follow up with a copter to... So I think my very flimsily planned idea was tank into here, and then it dies, and then this copter goes and finishes off the tank, and then this copter can come around and hit this copter. That didn't happen though, because my tank did not give itself up. I probably should have powered before. Oh no, I have two towers, so that's a guaranteed clear. Yeah, okay. Disregard. At least I cleared out a lot of charge because I have 33k saved up because I didn't deploy everything last turn. So I just send a copter in the medium tank, and I don't even need to worry about the rest of the fight. The main thing for this turn is like I need to make sure I get my deploys so that I don't just like run out of units. Nothing else really matters. I build a bomber with the extra funds because I'm spamming air, and I'm doing a pretty good job of clearing the anti-air at least. So yeah, and so now it's like bomber tank recon. We've upgraded from our copter. But yeah, we got a lot of copters still, so we're leaking oil down the stretch, but we're not dead, and we're defending our stuff, so we kind of lost the rest of our tanks, but we do have more tanks coming. And again, the most important thing is there's nothing capping my stuff. Okay, if we fight, even if things are like not that great, as long as nothing is capping my stuff, we can just keep going like this. And eventually we're going to hit day 25 and I'm going to have more stuff, more properties. So in the worst case scenario, we can just keep doing that. We now have some tanks coming in. We can still, as long as we keep killing the anti-airs, it's going to be okay. We'll have more copters. That copter dies. We get a little pick off there, and then the tanks on the high defense to take care of that anti-air. And we're just going as fast as we can. Nothing else. I mean, just killing the anti-air and then killing, the tanks there. Nothing else really matters about this turn. And we get the bomber. We got recon. Like, okay, we see stuff. Sure. send everything to attack. We don't have time to think about anything. Move our stuff. Copter tank recon. And then we're out of time again. I had 5 seconds left. This is a great turn. That was a great turn. Like I kind of got in a rhythm and just like, okay, we're far enough ahead in just the material that we've got the Yeet kind of on we got the Yeet on repeat. There you go. And so we're starting to make it work okay. I think we're finally decisively enough ahead in the air battle that there's no way that Max can come back. Yeah, so Max gets a max force. I think I forgot to power last turn. Oh yeah, I definitely forgot to power. Yeah, I knew I forgot 2 powers this game. So I ran out of time with 5 seconds. I didn't run out of time, but like I'm like, ready to jam that end turn button the second like all my stuff's done. I forgot to hit the CO power. So Max gets a free power here, which is kind of sloppy, but I mean this whole game is incredibly sloppy. And from here it's like, okay, all I need to do is send in the recon. Like now it's day 18. Now we can literally just kill infantry. I market crash immediately because Max is not going to get any charge this turn. So I just want the 10-10. We can send the bomber in, like who cares? Just kill anything. Because we can just kill infantry and it's over. Well, that's horrible. And we move our infantry back. They did their job. They absorbed vehicle hits. So they can just run back to cities and chill for the rest of the game and play defense. And yeah, send stuff into stuff. But at this point, like we kill the medium tank as well. So we just have too much air. With 2 towers and copter spam, like we have max copters because we have 2 towers basically. So it's really quite good. You have to either build tanks or build anti-air, but you can't really build both. And I just have too much money. So we're deep into Sasha's win condition, and that's the game. So this was, well, as the famous Tony Bennett likes to say, we were leaking oil down the stretch, but we managed to keep it together long enough to get the win. But if I had not developed such a big lead early on, I think this very, very easily could have gone differently. If we kind of fully turn on the lights here, so I'm going to turn vision back on. If we go back to some of the earlier turns, especially in the early game here, this is, I think, really the critical turn. I mean, you can attach a lot of what ifs to this situation. Like, what if this roll didn't go bad for Max? Then maybe like this copter goes here to finish it off, and then this guy goes here to damage that. But I don't feel too guilty because the copter went the wrong way, ultimately. And the way this was played by Max ultimately takes on a ton of risk because then this copter's in 2 copter move range of me instead of 3. So that's just it turns out to be a really, really risky move because it's kind of like, well, I'm just hoping that you don't have a copter. And if you do, then I'm in deep trouble. And I had a copter and he was in deep trouble. And it could have been ordered differently to avoid that possibility. So kind of the combination of some good luck and some early mistakes from Max, I think, gave me a pretty big lead. And then despite being under just a tremendous amount of timer pressure, I was able to play well enough to not choke and fall over under the pressure of playing on increment with a pretty big battle, a lot of units to move and things like that. So yeah, I think that's going to cover it for this one. This is a really exciting game. This was definitely, I think, a really nerve-wracking way to start off, and the most challenging game I played. I really 1 minute increment is so difficult. It's really hard to appreciate how difficult it is, and my preparation let me down a little bit. So obviously I'll learn from that for the future. But it was just a very, very challenging game, and I played just well enough to win, and not any better than that. So yeah, thank you for hanging out and enjoying this video, I hope. I do plan to do one more of these videos for the remaining game that I haven't covered yet, but right now there is a issue with the replay viewer. They can't load the game currently, so I'm waiting on a fix for that, and then I will probably record that video, but at least that video will be the easiest one to record, because it was that kind of game. So yeah, I don't think I've got anything else to say. Thank you to everybody who's new and seeing these videos for the first time. I had a really great response. Really great response to the previous video. Seems like you guys really enjoyed that. Make sure you check out some of the other videos on this channel. I do recaps of all of my tournament games, and I break those down. Some of those recaps go very, very long because they are properly async games, and so I have as much time to think as I want, and I take a lot of time to think. So there's even compared to these videos, like this is going to be like an hour 25 minutes. This is nothing compared to some of the other ones I've done. So go check those out if you really want to go like all the way down the rabbit hole. This is relatively tame by comparison to some of the games that I've done. And I've also got some stuff on some of the other channels. Like I did a co-commentary with Degis on one of my games. And I think that's it. So just check out some of the other stuff if you like this kind of content, and stick around for future videos. We'll see you then. Cheers.